All right, today we're going to be talking about how to find statistics using our calculator. So first, for a warm-up, we have number 1, 5 histograms are presented below. Each histogram displays test scores on a scale of 0 to 10 for different classes. Which of the following classes would you expect to have the highest standard deviation? So remember, standard deviation is a measure of spread. So if we are talking about the highest standard deviation, we mean the most spread out. So A is definitely not going to be the highest because it has most of our data in the center. Then these two still kind of have that shape where our data is in the middle. We have a lot of data in the middle of both of those. C is pretty even across. And then B, we have most of our data on the sides. So B is going to have the highest standard deviation because my data is most spread out from that middle point. Most of our data is on the sides. Number 2, the low temperature in degrees Celsius for some cities on the same days in March are recorded in the dot plots. Decide if each statement is true or false. So first we have the standard deviation of Christchurch's temperatures is 0 because the data is symmetric. So we are looking at this dot plot. And remember, a standard deviation of 0 would mean that the data values do not vary from the middle at all. And we can see here is our middle, and we do have data on both sides of that. So that would be false. Okay, if it had a value, a data value for a standard deviation of 0, that would be something like this, where we had all of our values were the exact same number. That would be a standard deviation of 0. But because these are spread out, that is not true. B says the standard deviation for St. Louis's temperatures is equal to the standard deviation of Chicago's temperatures. So we are looking at St. Louis and Chicago. So we have our center here. We have 2 dots, 3 dots, and then 1. We have a space, 1 dot, a bunch of dots there, and then 2 there. And if you look at that pattern, it is the same for St. Louis. Okay, so because their spread is the same, their standard deviation would also be the same. So this is true. Then C, the standard deviation of Chicago's temperatures is less than the standard deviation of London's temperatures. So if we look at Chicago, here's our middle, and we have data on both sides. For London, here's our middle, and we have this front side looks about the same, but for London, we have this value all the way over here. So our data in this direction is spreading much further than it is for Chicago. So this would also be true. The standard deviation for Chicago is less than the standard deviation for London. Number 3, the mean exam score for the first group of 20 examinees applying for a security job is 35.3. So that's their average score with a standard deviation of 3.6. The mean exam score for the second group of 20 examinees is 34.1 with a standard deviation of 0.5. Okay, so out of these two groups, that second group is going to be more consistent with their test scores because that standard deviation is smaller. Whereas that first group, a standard deviation of 3.6, their scores can vary much more greatly in either direction, above or below that mean. So if the minimum score on the security job entrance exam required to get an in-person interview is 33, which group do you think has more people get in-person interviews? So if we're looking at that first group with the mean of 35.3, so group 1 has a mean of 35.3, and it could range 3.6 below, which would be 31.7, and 3.6 above, which would be 38.9. Okay, that's our first group. And our second group's mean is 34.1, but their standard deviation is only 0.5. So they range from about 33.6 to 34.6. So even though their mean is lower, their average test score is lower, that standard deviation is also lower, which means their scores are more consistent. So if they need a 33 to get in, the second group is more likely to hit that because of their standard deviation versus group 1. Okay, if you have any questions, please write those down. Then we're going to go to example 1 here. So we are going to use our calculator. So it says a group of 12 people were asked their heights in inches, and below are the responses. So this box here are the steps to entering data in your calculator. So we are going to, on our calculators, we are going to first hit stat, which is 2 over from that green alpha key, and then our cursor is on edit, so we're going to hit enter. Okay, if you have data values in here, you can arrow up so your cursor is highlighting L1 and then hit clear. And make sure all of these are all clear. Okay, we're going to enter just all those values here. So just type in the number and hit enter. Okay, once they're all in there, you're going to hit stat again, arrow to the right to go to calc, and then that first option, 1var stats, is what we want. So you're going to hit enter, make sure it says L1 in your list there, and then just keep hitting enter until you see this list of data. Okay, you should get a whole list like this. You may have to arrow down. So on our list here, we are going to first look for the mean, which is that first number, and it has this symbol called X bar. So the mean is 66.6 repeating. And to interpret that, remember mean is our average. So we would say the average height is 66.6 inches. Next, we want to find our standard deviation, which kind of looks like an O with a little X next to it. And that value, we want 3 decimal places, is 3.944. Then we find our 5-number summary. All of these values are listed on your calculator. You may have to scroll down. So we have 60, 63, 68, 70, and 72. To interpret the median, that is 68. So remember, that's our middle. So 50% of students are taller than 68 inches, and 50% are shorter. Our IQR, remember, is Q3 minus Q1. So we just take 70 minus 63, and that gives us 7. And then the N, that's one of the first things on our list on your calculator, tells us the number of data values we've entered. So how many numbers we have entered in our calculator. Okay, this bottom step down here is how to clear your data. Very important, we do not want to use the delete key next to the left arrow. You only want to use clear, not delete. Okay, I'd like you guys to finish the rest of this packet and we'll go over it together.